Hi, this is Mark Borax, Soul Level Astrologer, with the Cosmic Weather Report for 2018, a year that I'm calling the end of everything that never worked right in the first place. I'm going to look at three factors in the cosmic weather this year: Saturn in Capricorn, the handoff from the year of the rooster to the year of the dog, and the number 11, which 2018 breaks down to numerologically. Let's take the first one, Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn entered the sign of Capricorn near the end of last year and came into a powerful conjunction with the Sun directly on the winter solstice, setting a very strong tone for this year and the next 3 years as Saturn moves through Capricorn. Saturn moving through this sign asks two main things of us: that we get real with how we use power, and that we get real with how we deal with time. Power and time are two of the main characteristics that the ancient astrologers placed in the hands of Saturn, who was the old god, Kronos, also called Father Time. Now, that story of how the old god came to power is interesting because I think we've been repeating that story unconsciously in our society recently, so it's worth looking at. The way that Saturn came to power was he rose up and cut down his father, the great sky god Ouranos. And he took his kingdom and proclaimed himself the king of everything. And after he did that, the Fates, the ancient feminine wisdom oracle sisters, made a prophecy that just as he had cut down his father, so too would a child of his cut him down. And in order to prevent that prophecy from coming true, he swallowed each of his newborn children that his wife gave birth to one by one, except for the one that got away, because his mother wrapped a rock in baby clothes and fed that down his throat instead of the child Zeus, who came to power and, true enough to the prophecy, rose up and cut down his father Saturn and took his kingdom and proclaimed himself the god of everything. Now, I think we've been unconsciously playing this myth out in society in recent centuries because it's now world culture itself that has become the delusional old god who is swallowing his children in the form of swallowing the innocence of humanity, the magic, the joy, the virginal wonder that children should grow up with in a world that really was a rightful place and made sense, all gets eaten time and time again by our current Saturn, which is modern society. This is one of the things that never worked right in the first place. So in order to change this, we have 3 years of Saturn passing through Capricorn where we're all being asked to get real about how we deal with power. And to me, that involves rising up to overthrow the old order, but without creating the same karma all over again that Saturn created when he slew Ouranos and that Zeus created when he slew Saturn. So can we find a power within us, a power of love, a power of soul, a power of truth that can empower us to overthrow everything that's currently wrong with the modern society, but without becoming a new tyrant ourselves? That's the key here in how we deal with power. The other thing that Saturn in Capricorn asks of us is to get real about how we deal with time. And this is a bit more subtle and mystical than how we deal with power, because most of us, the way we deal with time is we unconsciously become the slaves of time. In our time, time itself has become a tyrant. Father Time, the old god, has risen up to dominate everything. And it's so insidious and omnipresent that we don't even realize how much we're being driven by this. In other words, the modern concept of time isn't something that always was. It's a creation that the Hungarian philosopher Jean Gebser says took as much effort to create as did the pyramids. In other words, it took centuries to create this idea of time that we have in the modern world. It had to be built brick by brick over a long period of time. And what it comes down to is a highly mechanized military kind of breakdown of time into even increments of seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, centuries, millennia that drive us, that force us to conform to without us even realizing it. And this is very much a kind of a military time. It's like when, prior to the creation of jazz in New Orleans in the early 20th century, musicians worked with marching band music that was very thudding and repetitious that you could march to. Dun 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 dun. And then along came jazz, and musicians began to explore and discover a whole new way to work with time in the very same space where that thudding, even mechanized marching beat used to rule, came elastic time. And this is what we need to do with time now, is stop thinking of yourself as 49 years old. Stop thinking of yourself as getting old, as being used up by society's standards. And rather than that, be willing to enter a kind of timeless time or a meta time where instead of being driven by the clock and by the calendar and by the military marching beat, you find a jazz time. The more that you're able to explore that, the more you'll simultaneously change your relationship with power, because power and time are both linked in the hands of Saturn. So when you get real and masterful with how you deal with one, you simultaneously gain the same thing with how you deal with the other. So that's the first factor in the cosmic weather that I'm looking at this year, Saturn in Capricorn. The next one that I'm going to look at is the handoff from the year of the rooster to the year of the dog, which occurs on February 16th. So until February 16th, we're still in the year of the rooster. And the rooster year is optimal for gaining a vision. Just like the rooster climbs to the highest point in the farmyard, the rooster climbs to the apex of the barn, where he can spy the first rays of the coming dawn before anyone else on the farmstead and let everybody else know about it with a very strident voice. So in this tail end of the year of the rooster, we're all being asked to gain our vision of what's to come. This means gaining a clear sense, picture, an image of what world you're going to create, especially as you redirect your whole relationship with power and time. It ought to free up your creative imagination to receive a vision, to climb to a higher point of consciousness and see, oh, that's how I'm going to use my life, my creativity, my art, my artistry, my soul. And if you gain that vision, especially between now and February 16th, then when the dog takes over, which is an animal much closer to the ground, the ability to implement that high vision will come down to earth with all of the perseverance, diligence, and devotion and loyalty and steadfastness of the dog. So as you get clear with how you deal with power and how you deal with time, you open up a jazz time, you find a way to overthrow the old system without creating the same old karma. If you gain your imaginative vision, your map of destiny, then when the dog takes over on February 16th, the dog in you and in everybody will have a strong assistance to be very diligent and devoted in making that vision come true and become real. So that's the second factor. And the third factor I'm going to look at in the cosmic weather of 2018 is the number 11, which the year breaks down to numerologically. And the way you get the numerological value of a year is by adding the digits. So 2 plus 0 equals 2, 2 plus 1 equals 3, and 3 plus 8 equals 11. So 2018 is an 11 year. And in the normal course of mundane events, the 11 is a mute number. It's a grace note. It withholds its voice. It suspends its magic, waiting for sufficient factors to become supportive enough to bring out its true nature. And the true nature of an 11 is to implement the most positive change, the most evolutionary transformation. That's what the 11 wants to do, but it needs a lot of positive supportive factors in its context to be able to do that, which indicates that as you get real with power and time, as you gain a vision, as you allow the dog in you and everybody else to implement that vision, if you can arrange for your existence to flow along supportive lines, like-minded souls, collaborators, friends, all of those external supports that can assist you in going all the way with this, the 11 year will help implement very strong, powerful change. Now, I know that there's a lot of obstacles to making all these bright ideas come true. I know that there's many things happening in this world that should never, ever have happened. But none of that takes away even one iota of the truth that's living in your heart and soul. This is Soul Level astrologer Mark Borax signing off with the Cosmic Weather Report for the year 2018, the end of everything that never worked right in the first place. And please visit me at markborax.com, where you can sign up for my monthly Cosmic Weather Reports and check out my books and my readings. Thank you.